The sound cracked through the terminal like a whip. His open palm connected squarely with my cheek at gate 11B, the force snapping my head sideways. The rumble of rolling luggage and distant announcements couldn't drown out the collective gasp from travelers nearby. I didn't scream or stumble back. Instead, my fingers tightened around the small button hidden in my coat pocket, activating the hidden camera that had been waiting for this exact second. Conrad Reed stood there, chest heaving, eyes wild with the kind of rage only a man losing control unleashes. My stepfather. The man everyone in Elmwood City respected as a pillar of the business community, chamber president, a sponsor of youth sports, the guy with the firm handshake and easy smile at charity events. But in that moment, all the masks fell away. I pressed my tongue to the inside of my stinging cheek, tasting the metallic hint of blood. You just assaulted me in front of dozens of witnesses and airport security cameras, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through me. And you violated the restraining order. Again. He lunged forward as if to grab my arm. But 2 TSA officers were already closing in, hands on their radios. This is family business, he snarled. Stay out of it. But it wasn't just family business anymore. It was the end of everything he'd built on lies, forged documents, and stolen money. My name is Ava Morgan. At 34. I oversee compliance at a mid-sized investment firm downtown. The kind of job where you learn early that paper trails don't lie and predators always leave tracks if you look hard enough. 3 years earlier, my father, Richard Morgan, had died suddenly from complications after a stroke. He was only 58, vibrant one day, gone the next. The funeral was a blur of condolences and casseroles, but the real shock came when Conrad produced the will. Everything our family lake house on Willow Lake, the trust fund my grandparents had carefully built, went to my mother with Conrad as executor. It's what Richard wanted, Conrad had said solemnly, patting my shoulder like a concerned uncle. He changed his mind at the end. Wanted to make sure your mother was taken care of. My mother, Laura, had been devastated by the loss. Widowed young the first time when I was a teenager. She clung to Conrad's promises of stability. They married 18 months later in a quiet ceremony at City Hall. I tried to be supportive, but something felt wrong almost immediately. Conrad reviewed every grocery receipt like it was a financial audit. He timed my showers during visits. He installed indoor-facing security cameras for safety. And slowly, every family decision funneled through him. I kept my distance, focused on my career, avoided dinners when I could. Until last year, when Reed Capital Group suddenly needed an investor partner for a major mixed-use development downtown. My boss called me into his office. Your stepdad's project landed on my desk. Family connections help. Ava. Smooth the due diligence. The file that arrived had Conrad's handwriting on the post-it. Family supports family. But the numbers didn't add up. Environmental reports with missing sections. Revenue projections based on phantom tenants. Shell companies routing funds to offshore accounts. When I flagged the issues internally, Conrad showed up at my office within hours. You're overthinking this, Ava, he said, settling into the guest chair like he owned the building. Sign off. Your mother would be disappointed. I refused. Professionally. With citations from our compliance guidelines. His expression never changed. But his eyes hardened. You're just like your father. Stubborn to the end. Look where that got him. That night, alone in my apartment, I pulled out old family photos. My father teaching me to fish at the lake house. The way he always crossed his T's with a left-handed flourish. Something clicked. I started digging quietly. The original will from 2016 had been emailed to my aunt years earlier. It left me the lake house and 40% of the trust. The 2018 version Conrad produced, dated days before my father's death, left everything to my mother with him in control. The signatures looked similar at first glance, but the pressure marks were wrong. My father was left-handed. The later signature showed right-handed force. I reached out to Caroline Whitaker, an attorney specializing in estate fraud. Over coffee in her office overlooking the interstate, we laid the documents side by side. "This could be forgery," she said. "But we need proof. Judges prefer the most recent document unless we show fraud." Finding the notary, Elliot Grant, took weeks and a private investigator. He was living under a different name in a small town out west, working at a copy shop. When confronted, he broke down. Conrad had pressured him to backdate and notarize documents while my father was incapacitated. Threats to his business, audits, complaints to licensing boards followed when he hesitated. "I'll testify," he finally agreed. "But I need protection." Meanwhile, Marissa Torres, a former accountant at Reed Capital, had witnessed some documents. On a video call, she confirmed Conrad brought pre-signed papers. "He said your father was too ill for visitors, but still competent." I didn't question it. I needed the reference. My mother grew quieter, thinner. When I tried talking to her privately, she glanced at the walls. "He takes care of us, Ava. We should be grateful." Then she found the folder in his office. Hospital bills showing my father on a ventilator, sedated, 2 days before the supposed signing. Photos she took while Conrad was away. "What did he do?" she whispered over the phone, voice trembling. Everything flowed through Conrad. But rivers can change course with enough evidence. The plan took shape slowly, methodically, like building a compliance file that could withstand any audit. Caroline and I met weekly, mapping irregularities like coordinates on a grid. The lake house transferred to Reed Capital 2 months after my father's death with an impossible signature. Trust proceeds liquidated into untraceable accounts. Medical power of attorney signed the same day as the new will. Witnessed by Marissa. We needed to prove Conrad knew my father was incapacitated. The hospital records were protected, but my mother's photos provided the breakthrough. We had witnesses, financial trails, and the forged notary seal, certificate numbers that didn't match state records because the notary's license had lapsed. Conrad's pressure intensified after I flagged his development project. He couldn't approach me directly once the temporary restraining order was granted. But he found ways. Tires slashed in my garage. Strange questions to my doorman. My mother recorded conversations where he threatened to reconsider her living situation if I didn't cooperate. The airport idea came when process servers couldn't reach him. He always attacked when cornered, doubled down publicly. "I'll pretend I'm leaving," I told Caroline. "Book a real ticket to Seattle. Tell my mother I'm giving up. Flying out Friday afternoon. She'll tell him. He monitors everything." She looked skeptical. "You're using yourself as bait." "I'm counting on him being himself," I said. "He'll come to stop me." I booked business class. Visible luggage. Voicemails to friends in Seattle. Over lunch with my mother at her favorite cafe, knowing he might be listening, I broke down. "I can't fight anymore, Mom. The pressure, the threats. I'm leaving Friday. Maybe for good." Her tears were genuine. I felt like a monster. But sometimes you break things to fix them properly. By Thursday, the tension was electric. Tires slashed again. Plants in my office dying mysteriously. Conrad's Mercedes appeared on security feeds circling my building. Friday morning. Gray and drizzling. I loaded bags into an Uber. Waved at building cameras. At the airport, I checked in, chatted about Seattle weather. Then positioned myself at gate 11B. Phone monitoring parking garage feeds. At 2:47 p.m., his car appeared. By 3:10, He entered the terminal. Dark suit. Power stance. Our eyes met. He started toward me. Fists clenched. The slap landed at 3:14. Precise.
Public.
My cheek burned, but I stayed rooted. Recording everything. You ungrateful, he hissed, grabbing my arm. After everything I've done. Travelers froze. Phones came out. Security moved in. I pulled the restraining order from my jacket. He assaulted me. Violating the order right now. Behind him, passengers deplaned from the connecting flight. Elliot Grant emerged, pulling his carry-on, eyes meeting mine across the crowd. Then Marissa, folder in hand. Caroline with process servers and journalists from the local paper. Conrad turned, recognition dawning. His face drained of color as Elliot approached, the man he'd ruined for refusing to forge documents. No, Conrad said, lunging toward Elliot. Security tackled him mid-stride. His suit tore.
Pretense gone.
The process server stepped forward calmly. Marcus Reed, you're served with a civil complaint for fraud, forgery, breach of fiduciary duty. Additional notices, asset freeze on Reed Capital accounts, violation of protective order. My mother arrived, drawn by the scene. Marcus, what did you do? He pleaded. I protected us. With your late husband's money. She pulled out the hospital photos. He was on life support. You claimed he signed. The circle tightened. Witnesses. Evidence. Cameras rolling. Conrad's empire, built on stolen foundations, began collapsing in real time under the harsh airport lights. The immediate chaos at Gate 11B gave way to structured procedure. Airport police took statements, collected footage from multiple angles, and my lapel camera recording. Conrad was read his rights for assault and restraining order violation while journalists captured every word. At the station later that evening, Detective Chun reviewed the evidence. This is textbook, she said. Clear assault. Pattern of harassment. The financial side will take time. But this slam-dunk assault charge gives us leverage. We filed formal charges. My mother formally started divorce proceedings. Caroline filed emergency motions for asset freeze and receivership. Monday's arraignment filled the courthouse corridor with tension. Conrad's high-powered legal team from a prestigious firm arrived in force. But our side, Caroline, prosecutor, forensic accountant, witnesses, presented overwhelming documentation. Judge Matthews, known for no-nonsense rulings on financial crimes, listened as Caroline laid out the case. 2 wills, mismatched notary seals, Elliot's testimony about coercion and backdating, Marissa's ledgers showing millions diverted through shell companies and offshore accounts, hospital records proving incapacity, trust documents naming me beneficiary. Conrad pleaded not guilty. Bail was set at $5 million with passport surrender and monitoring, reasonable given flight risk and witness intimidation history. The civil ruling came swiftly, full restoration of family assets, freeze on all related accounts, independent receiver appointed for Reed Capital. Appeals were promised, but the findings were damning. 6 months later, the lake house on Willow Lake felt like home again. Renovations complete. Echoes of my father restored, his fishing gear,
Books.
family photos. The trust recovered over $8 million in diverted funds. Reed Capital was liquidated. Proceeds to restitution. Conrad faced federal prison time for fraud, forgery, tax evasion. Elliot rebuilt his notary practice with support. Marissa became head of forensic accounting at my firm, turning her skills toward prevention. My mother found peace in therapy and gardening, reclaiming her identity as Laura Morgan. I stood on the dock one evening, watching the sunset paint the water gold, sipping my father's favorite whiskey. The news alert confirmed Conrad's final appeal denied. Every forged signature, stolen dollar, and threat had been meticulously documented and presented. He taught me that everything flows through proper channels. Documentation, paper trails, evidence. I just used his lessons against him. The victory wasn't loud explosions, but quiet courtrooms, patient accumulation of truth. Most justice happens that way in records, depositions, the slow unraveling of lies under law's light. Yet questions linger. How many families suffer in silence because the predator controls the narrative through money and fear? How many victims stay because leaving seems impossible? I raise the glass to the horizon. To my father, who deserved better. To the family that survived. To truth prevailing when courage meets preparation. The student had surpassed the teacher, using his own methods to restore what was stolen. Perfect reciprocity, delivered with all the proper paperwork.